Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with Jason Meyers of Auditchain Labs and Chris Dreyer. And today we're here to talk about the announcement of the release of the consultation version of the next generation Swiss XBRL taxonomy, marking a significant milestone in the evolution of financial, business, and tax reporting in Switzerland. This breakthrough is the result of over a decade of dedicated effort, strategic collaboration, and innovative development. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Lots of good news. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Doing very well from fall-stricken Switzerland. Thank you. I'm a user of financial statements, etc. In my old days, or younger days, as a matter of fact, I was a financial analyst, and as an investor, I'm looking for information about companies. And structured data actually helps a lot in finding that right information as efficiently as possible. And that's why I'm very supportive of every effort that helps in making that information more easily accessible to us.
Well, good. There's a lot of good news to come out after a lot of years of work. Jason and Chris, why don't you tell our viewers the new things in XBRL reporting and what's going on in Switzerland?
Well, I'll let Chris explain what's going on in Switzerland, right? That's his turf. That's our turf, but...
All right, happy to do so. XBRL Switzerland actually is the jurisdiction of XBRL International, so it's a part of the XBRL International organization. The association has been around since 2008. But nevertheless, there is so far there's been no mandate, so no requirement for XBRL or any structured data reporting in Switzerland at all. But that's changing currently. What is already in place now since the beginning of this year is a mandate for XBRL reporting in the sustainability domain. I guess we'll talk about that later. And what's being in process right now is a consultation, is our consultation, XBRL Switzerland's consultation about the new taxonomy, the new version of the Swiss CH taxonomy. We call it CH. CH stands for Switzerland, basically. And that's the taxonomy for Swiss GAAP, if you will, which has been developed in cooperation with the Swiss Tax Conference, which is another association of the 27 tax authorities in Switzerland.
Well, hopefully there are about 19,000 accountants in Switzerland watching this in order to understand the new taxonomies coming out. But for the larger crowd out there, could you just briefly explain what the taxonomy means for the rest of the digital asset world?
It's essentially, I like to call it a smart chart of accounts. What is a taxonomy? A chart of accounts is basically just a list of your accounts that you're dealing with, and it's smart in the sense that it makes sure that the balance sheet actually balances and how it's interconnected with the P&L statement, etc. So that's the logic that Jason has just been talking about. But it's nothing more than that in its essence.
So in essence, the news here that we're reporting is that even though we've had quite a lot of very powerful computers and tax regulations for a long time, this is the first time that a government has adopted a machine-readable taxonomy that everyone's going to use. Is that correct?
The Swiss government, Swiss. So just to clarify, I can say that there are almost 20 million XBRL instance documents filed around the world across 200 regulatory agencies in 60 other jurisdictions, right? But this is the first financial and tax reporting taxonomy that Switzerland is launching an adoption, right? So it's under consultation right now, which might be a good idea to also talk about, which opens it up for inspection across all the cantons, as many accountants as possible that prepare financial and tax reports, right? The vendor community and all the stakeholder community. And based upon the input during that consultation period, the taxonomy will be revised and then a final version will be published.
That's correct. We already have the first consultation responses coming in, as a matter of fact, and that's a great thing. We were. You need to understand the taxonomy. The draft taxonomy is quite relatively simple. I think it has a number of concepts of in about an order of magnitude of 100, 200, something like that, and what's complicating things a little bit is that Switzerland has 4 official languages and English. Which with English not being an official language, but we use taxonomy labels in English anyway. So we have the taxonomy with French, German, and Italian labels. And obviously, the translation of those labels is also something that's quite important for all the language versions to get right. Because, say, a Swiss Italian naming or nomenclature is not the same as Italian. Right. So you want to have really the specialists look at that from their respective use case or use background as well.
Yeah, there are about 300 different Italian nomenclatures in Italy, right?
I wouldn't know about that.
Yeah. What you hear in Calabria is not what you hear in Rome, which is not what you hear in Milan.
Oh, that's the accent, yeah.
Different dialects, too.
Sure. Yeah, and the consultation, by the way, is open until the end of October. So if you want to get a response in, then please do so by all means. But just make sure that we get it by the end of October.
And from my understanding, a consultation period is a period where they said, we're going to go forward with this, but we want the potential users' input from it to make some minor adjustments before we make the final version. That's correct. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's correct. Yes. Just to explain a little bit what's happened before, there is a project in place by the Schweizerische Steuerkonferenz, which is the Swiss Tax Conference. And that is an association of the 27 tax authorities in Switzerland. You need to understand that each canton, which is the equivalent to a US state, actually has its own tax authority in terms of competence to raise taxes, and also the organizational unit that takes care of the tax raising. There is internal tax competition in Switzerland as well, so one canton against the other and tries to lower taxes, keep them as low as possible. But there's the competing force of trying to harmonize the taxes, the tax raising structure as well. So at least keeping the same variables, the same terminology, etc. And that is what this taxonomy helps with, so that they actually could get a common understanding of what the terminology is between all those tax authorities. So we've worked with them so far to come together with that draft taxonomy, and that is now open. That is now what is open for consultation and to be exposed to a broader circle of potential users. What also may be of interest is that the taxonomy will not be mandatory for use by legal persons. It's a voluntary thing, a voluntary way to actually declare your taxes. But we and the project group believe that if we make the process of actually handing in your tax statements, etc., if we make that as frictionless as possible
Right.
compared to the other options, then that should be taken up nevertheless.
Efficiency usually wins out in the end.
That's right.
Well, the accounting community, as you very well know, Chris, the accounting community in Switzerland is actually far more conservative than most accounting communities everywhere else. They're a little bit slower moving, with the exception of the Northeast German crypto valley, right? Where you have a lot of forward-thinking accountants that are now really doing all the accounting for all of us, right? All the folks in the crypto space, the companies in the crypto space. Our roadmap includes the ability to literally lodge your tax forms, your declarations, right to the competent authorities, right? That's on our roadmap, which eliminates a lot of the friction that Christian was referring to, right? Because now most tax forms are handled either via PDF, by post, right? The post office in Switzerland is actually very efficient, and it is a thriving business, unlike a lot of other jurisdictions, right? So, but digital filing is very efficient and frictionless. So, and I'll say that the friction also has to do with, or lack of friction, also has to do with the manner in which a tax form or a financial report leading to a tax declaration is prepared, right? So with Luca Suite, you prepare the model once for your client if you're an accountant, or if you're the company, the filer, you prepare your model once and you can reuse that every year, as opposed to getting your taxes done every year and spending anywhere between 10 and 30 hours, right? And that all depends upon how prepared the company is too, right?
Yep.
So, but model once and reuse many times eliminates a lot of friction, and then lodging right through Luca Suite with an integration is another one. So,
and Luca Suite is, of course, the product of Auditchain Labs, right?
That's correct, yes. So, a little history about how we got together might be useful, right? So,
sure will.
Chris and I have known each other for almost 5 years, I'm going to say. Is that right?
Sounds right.
Yep. And then we announced, by way of the Decarp Alliance, a collaboration 3 years ago. And then that ultimately led to the collaboration that is the subject of our recent announcement. So there are a few people that are contributing to the development of the taxonomy, or have contributed, I should say, us being one of them. Charlie, as Chris knows, likes to grab the bull by the horns, so to speak. So, and now, depending upon the outcome of the consultation and some of the responses, we'll refine it and publish the final version, right?
Yeah. And let's not forget our lead engineer, Ghislain Fourny, who is a professor at ETH, the Swiss MIT, and he's a member of XBRL Switzerland for many years, and is supporting us with the actual building of taxonomies as well. So he's been working with Charlie Hoffman to build this infrastructure now.
So, gentlemen, before we started the show today, we talked about one of the important topics that everyone in pretty much every industry is talking about, and that is sustainability. Jason, Chris, how does this product help with sustainability and/or sustainability reporting?
Well, sustainability reports actually generate huge swathes of data. which, if you don't actually structure them, will end up in data cemeteries. I am not sure whether that works because that's a German translation, direct translation. But you know what I mean. It's basically data that's very hard to use
What is
because
the German translation?
Datenfriedhof. So basically, it's a huge unstructured bulk of data that's difficult to use, unless you want to throw AI at it, of course. But it's better to actually have it in the format of structured data. So that there's a label on top of there sits a label on top of it, and the way to get at this information is also standardized to actually, so that we know not only what the number is, but also how that number has been calculated or achieved, etc. So that's the big issue about sustainability data. And there's huge efforts globally on the way about standardizing sustainability reporting. This is something that, for instance, the lead certainly is the European Union. So the European Union has a mandate in place for all its listed companies and later on even more to provide sustainability reports using ESERs. One more contribution to the data to the alphabet salad. ESER stands for European Sustainability Reporting Standards. And they are basically a way to standardize the data items, the concepts in XBRL parlance, and the way to get at these concepts. In Switzerland, we are following what the EU does, but trying to water it down a little bit to make it more accessible and easier, i.e., cheaper, to achieve for the companies. And that's why we have also introduced a mandate for climate reporting, for instance, which has come into force at the beginning of this year. There is a transition period in place of 1 year until this climate reporting needs to be supplied in XBRL version. So that will start from January 1st next year. And that's also the second project that XBRL Switzerland is working on, that we will support the industry overall to supply that climate reporting. That's one thing, one effort. And the second one, actually, in that context, is there is also a consultation going on of the Swiss government right now, which proposes to lower the barriers until which that sustainability reporting is mandatory, which has the effect of making it mandatory currently from about 200 of the largest companies to up to 3,000 companies in Switzerland. So that's a pretty significant expansion of the mandate, which is expected to probably come into force in maybe 2 years' time. So there's a lot going on in the sustainability reporting space in Switzerland, which traditionally has been rather conservative, shall we say, in terms of reporting. But because we are hugely exposed to the EU and also to the EU's relatively aggressive reporting mandates, which also apply to third countries, which the US is also following under. That's the reason why we're trying to control that a bit.
So I'm actually in New York for Climate Week. Yesterday I met with the folks from ISSB, IFRS, a few other agencies, people that Chris and I know. We have a few sustainability taxonomies loaded into the Luca suite now. Some of them are old. The newest one was published by EFRAG under the European mandates. So in 26, I believe, when Switzerland publishes the final sustainability taxonomy, we're going to load that as well, right? So sustainability reporting is, as you know, is a very big business now. The United States will once again be dead last in the world because of the events that occurred with respect to its movement forward into a mandate, which we won't go into, but sustainability is a big part of what we're doing.
All right, so there's all these reports being generated for sustainability, but someone has to look into them to see if they make sense or if they're correct. Is there an audit function to this sustainability reporting?
Great question. Sustainability reporting, until quite recently, has been a niche effort for a very much niche audience, and therefore there's never been any audit requirement for sustainability reporting. So people thought that if companies were already going through the effort of providing sustainability information, it's in their interest, say, to actually make that as good as possible, that kind of information. But now that the scenario is changing, the scenario is moving from a voluntary sustainability reporting to a mandatory sustainability reporting, the quality of the information supplied is also coming under increasing investigation. And there's a bunch of different things that are happening in that regard. So the EU regulation that I mentioned is actually asking for an independent verification of sustainability data, and there's 2 levels of audit that are being applied.
But Jason, while he's looking it up, the whole Auditchain software package, the Luca suite, is designed to take new information because it's standardized. New information, new taxonomies can be applied to it very, very quickly. Like you said, the MICA product came out in 3 days.
Well, hold on. Let me just qualify that, right? So governments and standard setters are the ones that define and publish the infrastructure for machine-readable reporting, right? No matter what it is. And what we do is we import that infrastructure. Without software like ours, you can't read it or do anything with it. Right? Luca Suite is a razor, and you can look at the infrastructure that standard setters and governments build and publish in the form of an entry point on the internet as the razor blades, right? Now, we make customized razor blades, which allow a user to customize the reporting scheme, because there's only certain you're customizing it to your needs, right? So a small company in Switzerland is not going to use the entire Swiss XBRL taxonomy, right? They're going to pick and choose what's applicable to them. And it's pretty much the same way in across many different other reporting schemes, right? You're not going to use the whole taxonomy. Otherwise, your output documents are going to have a lot of blanks, right?
Right.
And you don't want that. So just to qualify a little bit.
All right, Christian, what did you find with reasonable, and what's the second one?
Absolutely. Coming back to the audit requirements. So basically, as I mentioned, there's 2 levels of assurance, was the operational word that I was looking for. 2 levels of assurance. There's limited assurance, which is the current requirement of the EU regulation, which means that the auditor is not aware of any material modifications that should be made. And then the next level of assurance will be reasonable assurance. And that is a high but not absolute level of assurance. So as compared to financial reporting assurance, for instance. To just repeat, the current scenario is for limited assurance. But the EU regulator has already stated its intention to actually upgrade the requirement of assurance to reasonable assurance. And like I said, that's relatively novel. Also, the auditors are struggling to actually build the auditing capacity. And by the way, when I say auditors, that doesn't have to be the Big Four. There's also a new category of firms that may supply reasonableness assurance opinions.
Well, that's good.
But what's required or what's necessary is that you have the special resources, human resources now, to be able to issue those opinions as well. And in Switzerland, again, so far the current mandate is without any assurance whatsoever. But the consultation that I've just mentioned will also be introducing a mandate for limited assurance for the time being as well.
We can probably spend an hour talking about the subtleties of the difference between audit and external validation, right?
We could.
What we do, right? So
that's for another day.
Quite so.
Well, sustainability is for sure, from what you guys tell me, has a lot of reporting, a lot of requirements going out a number of years as you're talking, as they develop all this. But one of the things that's happening now is the European Union's MiCA requirements. How does XBRL come into that, and along with Auditchain Labs?
So MiCA is 3 reporting schemes rolled into one. One, you have MiCA itself, which requires the white paper to be in machine readable form. And it has 3 separate sections, depending upon what kind of crypto asset you're launching. It also has some it's mild right now, mild financial reporting, which is more in the form of a discussion and financial analysis of the last 3 years, if you've been in business that long. And also climate impact disclosure. So you have climate impact disclosures for all types of token issuers. So MiCA for us is what I call a tip of the iceberg use case. And the reason I call it a tip of the iceberg use case is because you've got the 3 reporting schemes rolled into one. And we are of the belief that anything that can be tokenized in the next 5 to 10 years will be tokenized, right? So ours is a next generation disclosure management infrastructure. We created the MiCA model in 3 days because, we have the XBRL knowledge, while most of the crypto space has never even heard of XBRL.
Right.
And they're still learning about it, right? And about 12 or 13% of the companies are prepared. And that might be a high number.
I think that's high.
Yeah. But in Switzerland, because of what's going on, because of our presence there, we're based there, there's a little bit more education, there's some more activity, but you ask 100 lawyers what they have to do as far as disclosure for their clients, and you might get a variation of 100 different answers.
Only.
You might get 200 different answers.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, MiCA is, it's, the way I see it, a replica of the U.S. Securities Acts without the holding periods under Rule 144. You have market infrastructure governance regulation, right? The CASPs, as they're called, crypto asset service providers. And you have the issuers of the tokens, right? And 80% of the burden of MiCA compliance for issuers of crypto assets is disclosure.
Right.
Right? So we make it really, really easy. If you can copy and paste or type, you can comply with MiCA.
I don't think, from my personal experience in reporting on the crypto markets, I don't think 99% of the digital asset companies out there understand MiCA and understand the requirements that are coming up very quickly on them for reporting and disclosure to comply with the European Union requirements. How are we going to blast this out to everybody to make them understand that this product is here waiting for them today?
Well, maybe one approach is also to make their accountants understand, and one point there is, I think the terminology is always quite important. Jason has mentioned the white paper as one of the reporting or disclosed of the elements to be disclosed. A white paper for the accountants out there is the equivalent of a prospectus. Of a securities prospectus. And that should give you pause for thought as to what the importance of that is. So it's not just a white paper in the classical sense, but it is a legally relevant document.
Yeah, I think they didn't do it right by calling it a white paper. If they had called it a prospectus, it would have simplified this whole process and people would have understood there's a much different requirement.
But then obviously the securities law implications would have been a bit too strong, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I can see that too. They needed a new word. White paper.
No, in fact, out of in the annex for the section you use for MiCA for tokens other than asset referenced or e-money tokens, there's about 8 different reporting sections that you have to use, and really only 2 of them deal with the actual white paper, what you would read in a typical white paper. The others are related to sustainability and financial disclosure, the identification of each of the related entities involved, the management of those entities, and then separately, the development team, right? So, the information's organized a little bit differently, and that's because regulators need to supervise and they need to exercise oversight, and part of that oversight is the ability to aggregate and analyze that data in a standardized way, right?
Gentlemen, we've spoken a lot about all the new, as we call it, stuff coming to the market that Auditchain is bringing and that the Swiss have published. And Auditchain is able to integrate like the razor, as Jason says. And we're looking forward to being able to help with it, if I can summarize this well, with tax reporting, sustainability reporting, MiCA reporting. That's a lot of information for one project. So congratulations on bringing that to market.
Well, not to mention IFRS reporting, US GAAP reporting, right? So,
like you said, we can go on for an hour.
Yeah. So it's infrastructure. So if you're a government,
right,
you can use Luca Suite to develop your reporting infrastructure, no matter what the domain is, whether it's sustainability or tax or financial reporting.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've learned a lot today about all of these topics. For more information and future announcements, please pay attention to all of our social medias, which you can find at auditchain.com.